Hello everyone, thank you for being with us today. It is truly my honor to have with us today our Attorney General, James Uthmeyer. I knew him from our work together when he was the Chief of Staff for Governor DeSantis. And I can tell you clearly and unequivocally, when it comes to someone who is always going to do the right thing, who's going to stand in the gap between good and evil, who's going to make sure that right prevails, it's our Attorney General, General Uthmeyer. I know him as James. He's going to give us a lot of details today, but I'm also joined today with Kelly Yona, who is with the statewide prosecutors, Whitney Mackey, with the statewide prosecutor. Eli Lawson is the assistant commissioner from FDLE. He's going to speak as soon as I give the 30,000-foot overview. You know, this was a very interesting investigation that, quite frankly, started relatively simple. It started when an online banking detective, Synchrony, came to Polk County because all of a sudden he noticed that there's a new account that pops up, and immediately $250,000 are placed in this account. So he begins an investigation on behalf of the bank, does a remarkable job, and then notifies the sheriff's office. When he notified the sheriff's office, we determined that there, and I'll give you details in a minute, but a guy by the name of Navarez was the one that opened this account. And then from that, the investigations went on, and we determined, my goodness, it's bigger and it's bigger and it's bigger. Ultimately, we served 18 search warrants with the help of and the direction of our statewide prosecutor. We also obtained subpoenas from several banks. And here's what we know. Let me give you the lineage, okay? This Antonio Penn, all right? He was the guy that was stealing the data from the M&T Bank, which is a bank group out of the Northeast United States. But his assignment at the bank didn't allow him access. He was a 5-year employee. So what did he do? He went to two of his associates, Barbara Frazee and Kamala Schaefer. Both of them had 35 plus years. And they were either giving him access to the bank data or giving him the code so that he could access the bank data. Then what he would do is, once he obtained this data, and I'll go into detail of that later on, he would send it to, we call him Oki Akushi, and Oki Akushi then would put it online with Telegram. When it went online with Telegram, people from around the world would purchase this information, and then subsequently they could set up accounts. All of the people we're talking about today, other than the tellers that provided access, had multiple accounts, some of them up to 20 or 30 accounts. And then they would buy the data offline and steal from the people. So what did General Uthmeyer's team stop? With our detectives and FDLE's detectives and other law enforcement agencies, what we stopped was an $8.8 million fraud and theft ring. Then Rashodo Durant there, he would also buy data, and Hassan Phillips, Michael Navarez, and Kevin Clayton, wouldn't you know it, he's here illegally, were three of the players. They were the three players we identified, and then they would push money back upstream. But understand, Durant, Phillips, Navarez, and Clayton, who we're going to talk more about in a few minutes, are only 4 of what we know of hundreds of people that stole data. The irony of it is Antonio Penn and Oki, even though they masterminded the theft of all of this money through wire transfers, They only profited about $70,000 or $80,000, and they're all broke today. So when I introduce you to these folks, it's important that you know that there's always some color to them. Antonio knew Okie because they played college football together at West Virginia. That's where they met. All of our associates knew each other. Antonio Penn liked to be known as Showtime Penn. He targeted the elderly. He called them dead-end accounts. And the general's going to speak more about that in a minute. But Okie, now, Penn's in Maryland, Okie's in Missouri. He is the one that actually sold online the account data. And then from there, we know that none of this would have happened if Barbara and Kamala didn't provide access to Penn. These guys understand. What's interesting about them is Hassan Phillips met Durant playing games online, computer games. He bought the data. All of them bought data. All of these had multiple accounts. This guy claimed to, at one time, work legitimately as a solar power panel retailer. Michael Navarez worked for Ring Power in Lakeland. Durant confessed. When we told him he was charged with RICO, he says, "Hey, I thought only rappers got charged with RICO." Duh. And at the end of the day, the important part is that because of the great work of our detectives and the statewide prosecutor, this entire complicated ring was brought down. So we have focused from Missouri to the northeast of Maryland to Florida. There are still hundreds of suspects out there that are not in custody that we'd love to have in custody. So with that, I want to close with a statement about Telegram. This went from teller to Telegram. Telegram is a platform that is operated out of Dubai. The CEO, Pavel Durov, was arrested in 2024 by France because he was involved in criminal enterprises online. Up until that time, they would not release any subscriber data at all, but a simple arrest by France got them to start to cooperate. But they market online that there's end-to-end encryption, and they call it a secret chat feature. That's why all of this could take place. New York Times calls Telegram the playground of criminals. So you have Telegram and Telecrook, and now we're telling everybody there's Telejail in Polk County. So these Maryland, West Virginia, Missouri people went from Telegram, Telecrook to Telejail. It was their choice. Now I want to turn this over to the General for him to give us the details of the miraculous work by his team.
Thanks, Sheriff. Sounds like you're telling me I need to investigate Telegram, so we'll see what we can do. We love our seniors here in Florida. We protect our seniors. You've got to be a pretty weak and pathetic person to want to cheat and scam our seniors and their hard-earned retirement. But that's not going to fly in Florida. Our statewide prosecutors will nail people to the wall with every charge we have if you want to come after our seniors. So it's an honor to be here today. Thanks to Sheriff Judd and the Polk County Sheriff's Office for allowing us to be here for this announcement. I say every single week, we have the best sheriffs in the country, the best law enforcement in the country. That's why people now know that Florida is the rule of law state, and families continue to flock here because they want to raise a family in the safest state, and that's what we continue to strive to be every day here in Florida. Today's announcement is but another example that crime does not pay here in Florida. If you want to come down here, if you want to mess around, if you want to get into trouble, if you want to victimize our citizens, we will hold you accountable every single day. Here you've got an example, 8 people that wanted to take advantage of seniors. They'll be facing charges, several felony charges ranging from racketeering to grand theft to organized fraud and others. The more we continue to investigate, the more offenders that we find out there, this network will grow, and we will continue to ramp up the charges. But let this be an example. If you want to take advantage of our seniors, you will pay the price. I do want to thank our Crime Fraud Enforcement Unit. Today we see bad actors continuing to use technology and creative means to scam people, and it takes a lot of hard work to stay ahead of them. But this fraud unit has been very effective in working with law enforcement and properly using our own technology and our own financial education to be able to identify the problems, to identify the bad actors, to see the irregularities, and ultimately connect the dots and hold the bad actors accountable. So I want to thank that unit. Sheriff Judd will be here. The statewide prosecutors will ensure that these wrongdoers face justice. Anything your office needs, will always be here to help. We believe in rule of law. We will continue to chase people down, and we will put people behind bars that need to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Judd. It's an honor to be here. My name is Eli Lawson with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. As you've seen, this case has a high level of sophistication, and with sophisticated criminal schemes require a sophisticated investigative team. We at FDLE were proud to be a part of that team, along with the Sheriff's Office and the Attorney General's Office. Our cyber fraud analysts are experts in tracking money and digging into volumes of technical data to prove the evidence needed in cases just like this. And the work does not stop now. We're committed in this case through prosecution to see that these men and women are brought to justice in this case and other similar cases. Once again, I want to say thank you to Sheriff Judd and Attorney General Uthmeyer for their partnership. This partnership continues on a variety of cases, and I want the public to know that we stand together, not just for the public safety and their physical safety, but also their financial security as well. So thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here.
As I close out today, I want to point out this chart here. You notice the money? That's elderly victims' money. That's elderly victims' money that they stole. They're pretty happy about that. We wipe that grin off their face now when you see them in the county jail. They're not so happy anymore. But once again, who did they target? The seniors, those that are most vulnerable. I share with everyone that most of our banks have robust systems in place to protect your data. But it depends on the people who work at the bank. And our banking systems have a lot of redundancies, but it's important when you open an account or when you have a banking account, make sure that you work with those at the bank. So you ask questions such as, if somebody needs to access my account, do you have a trail? Can you tell who looked at my money? Can you tell who looked at my identifiers? Can you tell who looked at my personal data? And what do you do to check and balance that to make sure it doesn't get away? Now, the good news is, and I want to brag on M&T Bank and the collateral banks, when they got into this, they immediately made sure that their clients were held whole. But At some points in time, they were even in a money clawing contest with the bad guys because the money had gotten moved, and then at some point in time, some of the security measures kicked in, and then the banks were trying to get the money back. The bad guys were trying to get it out of the accounts and move it to other accounts. This is all a sophisticated online banking process. I applaud our banks for the work that they do. I do want to challenge the banks, though. When it takes us 30, 60, 90 days to get a subpoena, that's 30, 60, or 90 days. The crooks are ahead of us. You need to step that up, by the way, so that we can get banking data in days, not weeks or months. That's why this investigation lasted approximately 2 years, because it was complex, it had tentacles, and we know there's a lot more tentacles. So I applaud the banks, M&T. I applaud those at Synchrony, which is an online bank, and all the others that cooperated with us. However, as customers and consumers, before you open an account, before you trust folks with your money, you're also helping the bank out to say, hey, what are you doing to protect my money? All right? With that, are there any questions?
Sheriff, why would these women risk 35 plus years of their career? Were they getting some kind of major kickbacks from these guys?
That's the same question that we're still asking, because we don't see evidence that they got any big money. The two principal sources together only had about 4 brain cells, because they diverted like $8 million, and they only made between 60 and 70,000. They didn't even know how to monetize the money that was being wired out at their behest. So, you know, when you've got Antonio Penn with 2 brain cells, and he said, I needed some backup, so he got Oki with 2 more brain cells. You know, I guess when they played football, their brains got scrambled in those helmets or something. I don't know. But they managed to steal a lot of money because these 2 tellers kept giving this guy access. It should have been a clue to them. Like, he doesn't have access to this data. Why does he keep asking me for it?
Can you further explain the significance of racketeering charges?
Well, let me let the general explain racketeering charges, because he knows it in much more detail, but I can tell you it's strong business.
Yeah, when you've got a network and you've got an organized crime outfit, it allows us to bring a heavier punch. So here you clearly have a network. You had 8 different individuals, offenders, that were stealing from victims, ranging over 230 victims from multiple states. So this allows us to bring in the racketeering organized network, which just leads to more jail time.
On that note, 7 of the 8, I think, are facing racketeering and then conspiracy to commit RICO. Why was Schaefer not charged with that as well?
At this point in the investigation, the statewide prosecutors in charge of the case feel that we need additional information, because she was not as active as Frazee was.
Is that why her bond was set so low?
Well, she didn't have a racketeering charge. That's why she had a lower bond. She's the only one out of jail. I mean, you've got to understand that this is culture shock. Old Barb here, that's in the county jail, doesn't even have a criminal record, and she's cooling her heels up there in West Virginia, and all of a sudden she gets arrested, and she's going to the county jail in Polk County, and she's never been in jail, and she's locked up deep in the jail, and is going to go to state prison, as she should, because she is the one, and with Kamala some, they are the ones that provided Penn to have access to this personal banking data to allow the wire transfers. But she, you know, it's culture shock when you go from not being arrested and caught before, even though she had done this for years, to now she's locked up. She's standing in line for the food every day at like 4:30 in the morning when we feed breakfast.
Sheriff, did Barbara say at all how she met Antonio or any of the guys, or why she?
They worked together. All 3 of them worked at the M&T Bank, and that's how they met. Penn had been there about 5 years. I think Barbara had been there like 38 and Camilla like 35 years. Well, and once again, you know, Oki and Penn had 2 brain cells apiece. You know, Barbara and Kamala, you know, how many brain cells do you have? Let's see, 2 minus 1 means 1. So I'm given access to data, and he's screenshotting it. You know, it's like, it's unbelievable. So that goes to show if you've got a rogue employee in your banking system, they can create havoc. But I can tell you that there were sophisticated systems, and M&T Bank helped us trace all of this and their cooperation was remarkable.
Let me ask this, did M&T ever raise a red flag regarding these transactions themselves? Was there a reason because the amounts were either smaller or like one time?
Synchrony is the first ones to discover it now. It's an online banking service.
Yeah, but I'm saying, why did M&T not notice?
Well, M&T, first off, the data was just looked at on a screen, right? And there would be a $1,000 transfer to a $300,000 transfer. If you looked at the 230 victims, I think it averaged $37,000. Well, when you're moving millions upon millions or billions of dollars through a large banking system every day, this is small stuff. And when you do it intermittently with no specific pattern, it makes it a little more difficult to catch.
For this Clayton guy, did he have an active deportation order? Or?
He does now. Listen, folks, ICE is doing the best that they can. But when that border was wide open for 4 years, and they're in here by the millions, they can't get to everybody. However, Clayton liked it here. He was here legally at first, and then all of that expired. But he doesn't need to think he's going to see the sunny beaches of Jamaica anytime soon.
He won a scholarship to Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah,
He won a scholarship to Alligator Alcatraz.
So he's going to be locked up for some serious felony charges, and then he can go back to Jamaica. But we're not going to let him out from under this serious criminal charge at the state level. James and his team are going to wear him out. Okay? God bless you all. Take care. Talk to you soon.